Yes, yes, yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. So let's get back to business. So I am indeed a control training specialist here in, well, ControlUp. I would love to see in chat just how many of you've um gone to one of
Raise
my
your hand.
trainings or even Michael's trainings. I know your has been, but do I have anybody else in here that has gone through at least one of my trainings? Whether it's going to be the advanced training or the basic training, any training at all.
There's a lot of people. I
Not
recognize the names. A lot of
but
people over here. Just
not
raise.
even one person. Hmm?
You need to raise your hands, guys, if you took the training with
They
Sivan.
can't raise their hands. They have to put it in chat. Anyways, so regardless, if you know me, you know that I'm very interactive and I love people asking questions. So please don't hesitate to let me know if you do have any questions through chat or, well, anywhere else. It's all good. You can also email us at academy@controlup.com if you're interested in any more of our trainings. So we've got basic training, user training, admin training. We have advanced training where we teach a lot more about scripts that you'll see even further on from today. So I'm only really going to give you a taste of what we can offer you. So email us at Academy and I'll be more than happy to see you all. Now, this beautiful picture of me, as you can see, it's not exactly like my face you see here. This is a 10-year-old picture. If you happen to be living near Diagon Alley, please send me a youth potion. I could really use one. Now, when I mentioned about scripts and we we're mentioning a lot about thresholds, and Andy himself was telling how important it is to make sure that your values are not showing up red, that you don't receive email notifications that you actually don't really need. So I want to go ahead and explain to you what thresholds and stress levels, as I'm not sure how many of you haven't gone through my training or have. And so we just want to make sure everybody's on the same level. So with that in mind, what is a threshold? A threshold is a set values or limits based on optimized industry best practices that when exceeded trigger an alert or action. Basically what this means is that if the color is red, that means at least 95% or greater has been reached in this particular example, CPU. And if it is greater than 75% until, well, 94%, the color will be yellow. And that changes the effect of what you see here. So the question will be saying, okay, well, then how do I go about changing these things? Well, at first, I'm going to show you how you can change these items. And then I'll go showing you how we're going to change these items to the best of our abilities using the new stress calculator script. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring up ControlUp now. Hopefully, you all see my ControlUp environment at this point. We'll give it a moment to load up. And to change these thresholds, all of these values that we see here, all we need to do is go under this section here. So that's under settings, stress. And under stress, we have every single metric available to us within the ControlUp environment. And there's more specifics I can say about how you can set thresholds for specific folders, but we're not going to focus on that today. Now, when I want to change something such as the CPU, I look for the CPU value field here, and I can change these values according to my needs. What those needs are, we're going to soon find out. Now, that's just going, again, into settings, stress, getting into this values, and you can see we can change things for host, machines, sessions, and processes, and accounts, applications, storage. I mean, there's like everything here, right? And so with that in mind, we're going to be like, okay, well, then how do I change these thresholds? But there's one more level to these thresholds that I want to show you before we actually dig into like the very specifics, is that we also must understand what is a stress level. Now, again, don't hesitate to come in with these questions. I'm just going to keep rolling, but you can interrupt me at any point in time, right? And so stress levels. What is a stress level? A stress level is a weighted sum of several metrics that indicate the health status of a specific resource. So what this means is that we're actually weighing every single metric that we have within the ControlUp environment, and these weights are considered as loads. These loads are our scores, and they're going to add up to our total stress. So let's imagine for a moment that we're at Hogwarts and we're actually going to a potions classroom. Snape is our teacher. He's very stressful. Imagine for a moment that Snape is on Neville's back, and you know him, he's very, very, very stressed. And any little thing can set him off. And just at the end of the day, his cauldron will blow up because he just doesn't know how to manage all of this load that is coming into him. Maybe Draco is making fun of him. Maybe Hermione is telling him not to mess up. I mean, there could be so many different things. And all of these things will make our stress levels much higher. But you can take Hermione, for example, or Draco, and they'll be like, oh, hey, cool, you know what, I can handle this. You know, keep bringing me more stress because I'm good at this. I have all the resources that I need to manage the stress that is coming onto me. And so that when we're looking into our stress levels, we're going to see that we're going to have all of these scores, right? And then the question you'll ask yourselves, well, how do I know what the calculation of these stress levels are? How do I calculate it? What is being calculated there exactly? Because these values are dynamic. If a certain threshold is met, if my CPU is red, or if my other values are red, how do I know? Because I'm not going to see it on this first page. To do so, I would double click on this item here, right in there, and we'll bring in all of these values over into the left-hand side. I apparently have some issues with my storefront, but we could take another one as an example as well. Let's take a medium stress level. Double click on this guy, and I can see if there's any technical issues over in this end. And so now I can try to see, okay, so I have some problems either pulling in some values or being able to read some items. And I want to try to really figure this out. And so I can place these 3 dots where you can see them right here. And I can see those calculated values. Now I'm going to go ahead and I can trigger proper stress for myself. I'm just going to jump into one of my environments right now. I'm going to remote in. And for those who know, we have this program that actually initiates high CPU. So I want to show you how that looks like in a real environment here. Now, just give this one moment. It's just going to run up for me. And so as we think about all of these stresses and these thresholds, we're going to be thinking about, okay, what is the day-to-day of my system? What is going on throughout the whole environment on its daily or hourly basis? So I'm right now just going to trigger a high CPU for myself. And so that we can see this over here on my RDSH, and we can see some high CPU now. And this way we can double click on this again. I can now see that this is high stress because the average logon duration and the error rate is relatively high. Again, I'll click on these 3 dots so you can really see these numbers. And I can see I have a total load of 3 because of CPU is adding 2 to my score, and average logon duration is adding 1. And these other error rates, you'll notice, add no load. And that's because they may be an error, but it's not adding to my total stress. Have I lost anyone? Sometimes I lose 1 or 2 people during this section. I really wish I had those thumbs up buttons like I do in Zoom. All right. Now, with that in mind, we can now think about other things that we'll want, right? How are we going to be able to check a few things here? Now, when I'm thinking, okay, so I have my stress level here. I can change my total stress level with these icons, these cogwheels, and this allows me here to be able to define the loads. And by the way, I'm just removing the inheritance from here so that I can manually change these items myself. And if CPU doesn't really need to call me such a high load, I can change these things. And I can change these percentages. I can move them as I need to. Now we get to the fun part, right? So we talked about stress levels, we talked about thresholds, but how can I use this script that I have here to really let me flow through this information. With that, we want to do a few things. We need to prepare our environment to gather this information. And so we have things like our CPU monitor. We can do an export through the CU monitor here, the ControlUp monitor. And we can also export information for our insights. With this, we'll get an export of this data that we need. And we're able to schedule these exports as we want as well. And this way we're getting what we want to do. The idea here is that during our busiest hours or our busiest weeks, we want to gather all the data that we need to collect in order to make sure that we give the ControlUp calculator, the stress calculator here, the most information that we possibly can. And to do that, we're going to get this script, the ControlUp stress calculator. This stress calculator will show a screen like we see here, where we'll be able to define our percentages of, okay, at what percent of our average that we're getting throughout this time for the 75%, for our medium, for the yellow section. And then we have the red percentile, which means, okay, when do we want it to turn red? When is it going to be high in critical stress? And so we're actually going to be using that today. Going back into ControlUp, the first thing you'll need to do, of course, is download the script. So if you have the console open with me, you're going to go to Script Actions. You're going to go find Stress, and you're going to go ahead and install it. Now, this is one of our newest scripts. You can see the value here. Now, if you're on the on-premises version of ControlUp, can somebody tell me in chat who's on premises? Can somebody let me know? Anyone? There has to be at least one person, right? Awkward silence. Hey, here, make sure that they're able to type in the chat. All right. Now, anyone? No one's in on the on-premises version. All right, team. All right, I'm gonna move on, but let's verify that people can chat in there, or someone, right?
There are
Now,
a few people that I recognize that are on premises, and for that we will need to send them an XML file with the script, right?
exactly, which is what I was going to get into. Now, I really want to see if we can get people in this chat, actually. But either way, the idea here is that we're going to be able to give you an XML file for this. So contact our support team at support@controlup.com. The email will look like this. Right, let me type that up correctly. Can we throw that into chat? Let's throw that into chat. I think I have that in there. And we're going to
take a look at the questions, not the chat.
Oh.
And we see a lot of people from, yes.
Oh, I got 5 hands up. Oh, that's exciting. I'm sorry. I'm still getting used to this program.
Yes,
where are those questions?
No. On the bottom, you can see a number of people that indicates that they are on premises.
Okay.
But don't,
okay. I'm gonna have to go with it. But do we have any questions currently?
No, we are okay. Just continue.
All right, just making sure that we're not missing anything. All right then, beautiful. So with that in mind, contact the support team or contact your EAR or contact your CSM, whoever, and we'll be able to get you that XML file so that you can actually get that uploaded, because you're not going to see the same items as I do. So I love to see here the people who have added this script. So this is live from all of you that are on cloud currently. So I hope to see this number rise the next time I do a reload of this section. And so once I have that script, I'm able to right click on anything. It could be on a machine, on a session, on a process, on an account, application. It doesn't matter where, the script will be able to be ran from anywhere, and I'll be able to run this script. Now you'll notice that when I select this script, it's asking for the default locations and the export locations. This is truly 100% not required. These items are required. But the question here is, of course, where do I get these files? So how am I going to go ahead and implement this through the monitor? The idea here is that when we do it through the monitor, we're able to define, and first of all, I'm at the monitor right now, I'm selecting monitoring settings. This brings up this section for the export schedule. This is what I want to pay attention to. Because what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to choose my busiest hour. Maybe it's in the morning, maybe it's in the evening. You can let me throw through chat. Oh, I finally see some questions here. Then I'll be able to go ahead and say, hey, I can choose 12 p.m. Maybe lunchtime is my busiest hour, or maybe it doesn't really make sense, right? 10 a.m. would be my busiest hour till 11. You want to choose only 1 hour because you don't want to have too much information to get through. Otherwise, things get a little bit like messy. Gets too much information. And then I'm going to choose minutes. And then I can say, okay, well, every 5 minutes, I want to get an export between the hour of 10 to 11 a.m. on Monday and see what's going on. Maybe 9 a.m. is your busiest hour if your company's opening at 9 a.m. And so I'm going to get this export. I'm going to leave this so I can delete files that are older than 7 days because I don't want to accidentally get too much in there and it can really build up pretty big. And I can change it to minutes, hours, or even days if I want. So let's say 5 hours old, I can remove the items and I don't have to worry about it later. Now, once you set up that schedule, and by the way, you can export many different views, folders, hosts, machines, sessions, processes. And I'm going to be able to choose it. Once I do that, I want to choose a report directory. This is a location that every single monitor that you have in the system needs to be able to access. In general, we do recommend having it as a shared folder location. Just make it shared folder location. Don't need to break your head on, okay, local file, and I have to make sure this folder is located everywhere. It's too much of a headache. You don't need to deal with it. Have one location for all of these files that you're going to have. And if you require the credentials, throw those in there. Now, once you set up that schedule, you're going to have a nice block of data looking something like this. And my export here right now is just machines because I only did a machine export, but really you can make it really large. You can have anything from executables, folders, hosts, sessions, processes. As you can see here, it's huge. I made sure that my list is relatively small because it makes it go a little bit faster. And so if we're using it this way, at this point, we can go into our stress calculator. I'll just choose my default location, being what it was before. And again, this is a optional field, as well as the export location. We'll talk about why you want an export location in a moment. Hit OK. And this is going to bring up this view. It's beautiful. It's magical. It's wonderful. My folder location for my machine data is already here. I just need to load this data. Actually, before I need to load the data, I need to choose my source. And so this is only machines. And you'll notice that not every single section in ControlUp is an optional item to define stress, or I should say thresholds, at this time. It can change in the near future. And so I'm going to choose machines. And again, I only used my general machine folder, but if you had a folder with everything in it, it still would work. I'm just doing this again because once I load the data, it's going to take a moment. Now, sometimes it's going to take a little bit longer than you're expecting, only because it needs to go through everything to pull in all of these metrics. So you should be giving it a minute or two if it needs it. Now, don't be afraid if it says not responding. Again, it's just loading everything. Now, once I'm in here, I'm able to choose, okay, what do I want to change? What thresholds do I want to change? And my CPU is going to be the one of them. And right away, almost instantly, it tells me, okay, well, my average is about 3.37 because this is my demo environment. It's not used too heavily. And it says, okay, well, once it reaches higher than this, maybe we want to rise this amount. And then once it's red, maybe it's going to be best at 26% because again, this is taking the averages during the time that I had my busiest time, pretty much, right? And for me, this would make sense. Maybe not for you, but it definitely makes sense for me. Now, Yair, don't forget to mute yourself. Now, we can choose more values from this list. Let's say memory utilization. And I can keep adding things to this list to get a nice view of all the things I want to change. And even if you're not the one doing the change, maybe somebody else will, and you want a history, you want to keep this for future reference, you can export this to CSV and have this, and notice that it's going to my default export location now. And then I can use this for, well, reference, right? So I can go back to see reports. That's where I had all, I think it was program files reports, really. And then I'll be able to see all that information where I need it to be. Actually, I think I need to, I'm blanking out here. Let's go ahead and export that again. I'm going to be lazy. And then I can find the export in here, right? Now, there's another way of doing this, which is through the insights. So to gain access to insights, I'm going to go to ControlUp Insights tab, ControlUp Insights, takes me directly there, right? And the views that I'm able to export to give me this information can be anything that has a nice little chart here. And this is something that I can export. And if I want to gather the data for a long period amount of time, let's say 1 week, right? Because the ControlUp monitor is only going to capture 1 day. What if I just want a week of information? I can choose 1 week or 1 month. I can export this view to a CSV. And I can use this inside of my stress. Let's go back to my stress calculator here. I'll be choosing insights data. I'll browse because it's actually in a different section in here. And then once I have it, I'll be choosing, by the way, you'll notice that I don't have the bar to choose what I want to have in regards to machine sessions or anything, because inside of Insights, it finds it itself. And once I load the data, I now have the values I may want to, well, pull out. And this is coming from my session, so I can choose here, log on duration. And so this is my average for the week. And so hopefully you can actually see how this could be beneficial to you. And then I can like take these values, I should say, 30 and 50, go back to settings, go back to stress. And particularly this was my sessions. I was talking about my log on duration. And then I can change when it turns yellow. So it should turn yellow at 24. And my red will be 52. And now I actually have thresholds and stress levels that make sense for me, right? We haven't yet defined these stress levels here within our calculator, but at the end of the day here, if you get these yellows and reds, everything else is the easy part, right? Because you're thinking to yourself, hey, you know what? These values are actually meaningful. And that you don't get false positives, you don't get false negatives. You actually get things that actually matter, right? Anybody excited to use this? Can I see a raise of hands of anybody who's actually already used it now during this session? Or just let me know through chat. It's all good. Do I have any hands raised? Seven hands are raised. Oh, that's better than none. All right. Well, hopefully with this, can you now see yourself starting to use this though? Can I see some more hands?
Yeah, people are also remarking in the chat that they are excited and want to see it, try to use it. So go ahead and download it. It's available in the community and start using it. Just you need to prepare the export as Sivan instructed you.
So just to do a quick review to make sure everybody's on the same page, monitoring status, go to monitors, monitoring settings, set your schedule, create your rule, or export and/or export from views such as session activity and computer statistics, things like this. The rest will work as it should.